Hi class, let's start chapter 3. If you're planning to do the assignment, wait until do your communication now and wait until next week when chapter 4 comes out, and then once you have a better picture to deliver your assignment. So let's start now, and I will share the screen. Okay. So we are in a chapter 3, and we'll be talking about consumer behavior. She said things got more complicated once you understand the behavior of the human. It's not an easy thing to understand. But in this object, in this course, in this chapter, we will be doing what you call the learning objectives. It will be, we describe a stage in the consumer's purchase the decision process. Then we will distinguish among the three variations of consumer purchase decision process, which is, it could be routine decision process, limited decision process, or extended problem solving process. Then we will describe how situational influences affect the consumer purchase decision process. And we will define and explain how psychological influence affect the consumer behavior, particularly consumer purchases decision process. That's what we are looking for, because we want the consumer to purchase eventually. We're doing the marketing because we want them to purchase. Then we identify the major socio-cultural influence on consumer behavior and their effect on the purchase decision. Then we discuss the importance of culture and subculture in determining consumer behavior. So the goal is really rushing to engage the consumer is understanding the habits of potential customer. Organization can direct their limited resources to achieve the success. In other words, if I know what's the habit of a certain customer, habit of purchasing, then I will be focusing more on their habit of purchase. So I will have less resources utilized in that direction. Now, the decision process, consumer purchase decision process, goes through different levels. So, and basically, consumer behavior action a person that takes to purchase and using services. And usually, whatever action you take to use that services. And usually, market segment relies on this insight. The first stage of purchase decision process is actually the problem recognition. So it's basically you recognize the problem and you perceive a need. For example, if you're hungry, that's a problem, and the need is to eat. Then you do information search, start searching, seeking values. Which one has better value for you? Whether it's Subway or burger, they both has value. Which one? Seeking the value. Then you evaluate, or you do evaluation of alternative. See this versus this, Subway versus McDonald's, and then you assess the values. And then you make a purchase decision buying the values. So you look at, you're going to put the dollars and return, you get the values. So you make a decision buying that values, how much it's worth for you. And when you do that, then you go to a post-purchase behavior, which is value in consumption or use. So in the first stage, when you do a problem recognition, you're perceiving a need. When a person realizes that difference between what he or she has and what he or she would like to have is a big enough to actually do something about it. So when you realize that you probably have a small car that doesn't fit your family, and what do you like to have a bigger car to fit your family all, this is enough to do something about it. Now, the second stage, which as we said, is the information search. You start seeking in values. When you do information search, you're looking at the value of the information that you're getting, whether you're getting GM, Ford, you search for the value. And then you do the clarifies the problem, which is it clarifies the problem of consumers. And then you do an internal first search, scanning their memory, or for a knowledge of your previous experience. And then you do an external if lack of experience. So you search with yourself. You're saying, okay, I'm going to buy 4x4 and I need it very spacious inside. You start searching in your mind and see whether which one 4x4 is spacious. But if you don't have any experience in that knowledge, you start seeking the external knowledge, finding out the space internal each 4x4, how spacious it is. So it's basically here where you start seeking the value. Um, when you do search can be, as we said, internal and or external. And to do the external, you would probably have a different habits. Today, for example, television no longer commands our full attention. So we are seeking the multimedia. Majority of multimedia consumption is screen based. So the whole multimedia is a screen based. So we utilize that. When we do online shopping, is a multi-screen activity. So you move on around the shopping. And consumer move between multiple devices to accomplish their goal. They might be using a tablet, a mobile, or a PC or a laptop. So there's different devices that they make decisions. But overall, there is a few companies who now, like Nike, what they're trying to do is converting these people from browsing, shopping around, to really purchasing customers, where you can customize your need. For example, Nike is doing that, is that you set up the color, the shape of where is the logo, everything about your shoes, and you order. You're not going inside a store to do a browsing, or you're not going inside a site to browse. Now suddenly you're there to start shopping. So you move from browsing to a shopping. Now we see people when they get into a store, they go straight to their mobile. And 43% of people use that mobile. And when they ask them, what do you do? 31% use their mobile phone to compare the prices. Probably 25% use their to get better advices from a family or friend. So there is a utilizing reasons why consumer out of these 43%, 31% of them is doing such an activities, for example. So the showrooming, using mobile devices in a store, usually to check online competitive product reviews and prices. Now, the stage after that, it comes to the evaluation of alternatives. So you saw all, you start assessing the values between different products, which one giving you more values, and you focusing on the first objective and then the subjective part. You try to distinguish between the objective and subjective. The information search that I can suggest criteria of purchase is the objective, which is feature attribute. The subjective is the status, feeling, or could be um, what's the next person is using. So that's a subjective. How easy it's using the equipment is subjective. But when you're looking for exact feature attributes, then it's a very objective. And when you're talking about technology, the objective is functionalities and technical requirement that you're looking. Two CPUs, faster, that much memories, the battery, how many hours it can last. All these are very objective. Then the subjective, how you feel about it, touch and feel, the color, all these. Maybe you like it white, another person likes the black. So that's the subjective part. So the results is in an evoke set. You become an evoke set, and then you go to the next stage, which is the purchasing decision. You, after comparing the values, now you are buying a value. So having examined the alternatives in the Vogue set, there's just three choices comes in remains. What brand and who to buy from and when to buy it. These are the three things that you seeking when after the set evoked set happens, which is that's part of the buying a purchase decision. So the last stage when you go through a post purchase behavior, which is value in consumption or use. When you start using it and you start valuing it, whether it's useful, they meet your requirement, whether objective and subjective, all these things. So what you're looking at, satisfied buyers usually tell three people, I'm happy with this. The dissatisfied one, I complain to the nine people. So the bad news is spread faster than the good news. And with the mobile technology that expedite this communication thing, so you want to make sure your buyers are satisfied. And then it starts establishing um, cognitive dishonest. And this is the most dangerous stage where you can get into it. So in the involvement and problem solving variation, there is a high level of involvement, which is uh, how expensive the product is, how frequently you buy it, and reflect on a social image. So the involvement is the personal, social, economic significance of a purchase to the consumer. So is it expensive, less expensive, meet your budget, can you afford it? How infrequent? So when you're buying a mobile, you're not that infrequent buying than you're buying food, or you're buying, for example, softwares or any major things. How infrequent and how it reflects your image. It's different when you are using high-end softwares or using Macintosh instead of, for example, Acer. That's the image. I'm not gonna, here it is talking about the different problem solving. Now, when you talk about a routine problem solving is like you're driving in the morning, you say, should I buy coffee or not? Which is you usually buy from Tim Hortons. Then you have a limited problem solving, which is you have two brands or more or several brands. Go, okay, should I buy Starbucks, Second Cup, or um, no, Tim Horton or Second Cup, put it this way. When it's extended, you have many and so many options. Not only should I buy a Starbucks or from Tim Hortons or from um, coffee cultures, they're also going to have, should I go for a latte or Americano or something? It is more extended, it takes more time. So the range of consumer involvement, it changes from very low when it comes to routine problem to a limited problem solving to the extended problem solving. The time you're spending on buying a very expensive watch is not the time you spend on buying a cheap pen. So the characteristic of purchase decision process, you look at a number of brand examined. In the routine problem solving, it's one. In the limited one, as we said, is two or more, but not many. And the extended is extended, too many of them. Uh, when it's come to number of sellers considered, you have a few between say, Starbucks and Tim Hortons. You have severals, and you have many of them. And number of product attribute could be one that you're looking for, just a coffee, black coffee, or coffee with the sugar and milk and like a latte or a regular on added milk or a cream on it, or many attribute. And number of external information source, if you don't have any, or there is a few coming in that you can get information from it, or there is a many of them that you can forget it from brochures, you get it from your mobile, you get it from SMSs. These are extended external information sources. And you look at the time spent searching. In the routine solving, you just go there to the coffee around the corner, whichever is there, you buy that. That's very minimum. And then if you have a little time, you're spending little time, you're searching which one closer, which one further, which one is open, which one is not, which one has a better service. Spending time on searching, and then there is a considerable time of searching. You spend 3 4 months to buy your next car. That's a considerable time. So these are how a consumers, range of consumers involvement. And they can be, according to their personality, is, moving to this side or to that side. Now, what influence, the process of influence, what factors involved in it? So the factors, as we said in the first chapter, we said the 4 Ps, the product, the price, the promotion, the place. So these are 4 Ps influencing the customer. And if you have a good product, good price, good value for it, nice promotion, and located in a nice place. Then the other thing that is influencing it is the socio-cultural influence, like a personal influence, reference group, family, culture, subculture. We will explain each one of them end of this chapter. And then you have what you call the social situational influence, which is the purchase task, the social surrounding, the physical surrounding, the temporal effect, the antecedent states. So social surrounding, or you with a friend, with the parties, with the reason why you are buying, and then you have the psychological influence. What's motivate you? Which is the motivation, the personality that you have, the perception, how you see the product, how it's going to be. Your learning, how did affect? How did you from your learning? And there is different type of way of learning and the value, the belief, the attitude that you have towards life and to this product and your lifestyle. And all consumer decision process, as we said, with these factors that are influencing, you are going through that process in it, which is problem recognition, then you go to the information search, you go evaluation of alternatives, purchase decision, and then you go to the post-purchase behavior. That's what we did in the first two slides. So the situation influence consumer is start from its behavior, it influences behavior is kind of the purchase task. We said the social surrounding, the physical surrounding, the temporal effect, and antecedent states. And also, we said, is the motivation and personality, the perception, the learning, the value, beliefs, attitude, the lifestyle. See, things gets more complicated. But to analyze all these, we have to go through what you call a Maslow's hierarchy of need. Maslow's believe psychologists believe that he divided the needs on a different level. And he says the motivation, energizing forces that stimulate the behavior to satisfy a need. So the motivation is kind of an energy forces that stimulate the behavior, your behaviors to there is a certain need to satisfy. And he says these needs are separated, and if one of them satisfied, you go to the next state. And starting from the bottom, he talked about the psychological needs, which is about food, shelter, and water. So you need water, you need food, this is necessary, and shelter, a place to stay. Once you are satisfied with that, then you start this next motivation will be intrigued and looking for safety needs, such as freedom from harm and financial security. And once the stage is satisfied, then you go to the next stage, which is the social needs, which is you need to build some kind of friendship, belonging to a group or family, and love and be loved. And then, and once you're aware of the fact, if you are don't have the financial freedom, financial security, or freedom from harm, you're not looking for to really be keen of being having a friendship or belonging or love. Once you cover the social need, then what he calls it esteem need, self-esteem need. And it's about the status, the respect, and the prestige. And once you get the status and prestige and respect, lots of people feel that they're still empty from inside, which is that's what you intrigue something called self-actualization, internal fulfillment. That's called self-actualization, which is a fulfillment of your ambition and hopes. So lots of rich people, for example, became millionaire, but then in the end they decided to be artists or to be a musician or something, not for the money. They have internal feeling for that. Sometimes you will see people who wanted to continue their education different field, but they end up doing something else, educated in different, once become uh, you know, financially fine and they have the respect and the prestige, they pursue the other education just to fulfill their fulfillment of their ambitions and hope. So the personality, it's about person characteristic that trails that the influence behavior of response. It's about two parts of it. In the personality, first you do a self-concept is it has one which is has two parts. One is the actual, which is how people actually see themselves. And then you have the ideal, which is how people would like to see themselves. And many of us um, see themselves, for example, physically not capable of fighting 10 people. But the ideal is like the heroes in the TV, you were able to to fight 10 people. So that's the ideal. And the actual, you're too weak, too small to even, beat one person. So these are how actually people see themselves and how ideal they would like to see themselves. Now, here's what comes the perception. And it's a very important that you understand. It's like there is a filter you have or the consumer have, and they have to go through that filter, and which is called perception. And perception is a process by which an individual select, organize, and interprets information to create a meaningful picture of the world. In the selective perception, so when we said the first word, we said select, it means he will select, being selective exposure. You might see so many things, he doesn't pay attention, very few things that he pays attention to them out of the 100 things that passing beside him. So there's very few things. And it's happening for you is that you're driving from point A to point B, and you just driving. You're not paying, you're not seeing the cars around you, what kind of cars, who's the inside the car. But when you see a green light or red light, you stop, and this is because you have some kind of a selective exposure, and then you have a selective comprehension. Once you get exposure to these things, between all these things, you select something to understand it. So these things it gets more minimum, which is you start comprehending. And once you understand it, then you do a selective retention. Some of stuff you keep it in your mind, retention it, but lots of them that you just forget and forgive and throw them behind your back. So these are the three process for a selection or selective perception. You might be exposed to too many type of genes, but you select to be exposed, you choose exposed to a blue genes, and then you do a comprehension. Between all the blue genes, there's three or four that you really start looking at them and understand how they're going to look on you and all these things. And then when you leave the store, you keep one in your mind that really looked good on you. Maybe the others looked good on you, but you didn't want to keep it in you couldn't keep it in mind, or you didn't want to keep it in mind. And that's the selective retention. Now, there is, when you do these process, you are also um analyze the risk involved with it. We all have a tendency to mitigate the risk, but there is a risk that you will analyze it. It's as a perception. Risk is a perception. It's not definite. You can have a very risky surrounding, but you feel safe because your perception did not see that risk stuff. And the one beside you probably is very scared. You're not scared, and because the risk is perceived. So risk perceived or perceived risk is belief about the potential negative consequences. So when I went to Iraq, I never thought that I might get shot or killed or get into an accident. So I didn't see that risk in a way. Maybe I saw it in a very limited. But the bigger you see it, the next guy beside me in the company did see it a very big and perceived it very big, so he didn't take that risk. The size of the risk I saw it is a very limited. So it is also part of the perception, and it's a belief about the potential negative consequences. So the strategy that you want to really use, and the strategy is an example for dealing with perceived risk. First, you can give a seal of approval. Guarantee, warranty, guarantee this, and not going to blow, not going to electrocute it, all these things. a seal approval. Then you provide a secure endorsement for influential people, people who probably you look up to them, like sport people or politician or whomever or actors. So they are will endorse that. So you're minimizing and mitigating risk when you see somebody is using it. The other way of doing it is providing a free trials of a product. So when you try it, you're not risking your values, you're not risking your money. So you try it. If you like it, you keep it and of the product. And that's done lots in the softwares. And then you have the providing illustration. Somebody show you how it's doing it in front of you. And then, as we said, warranties and guarantees. Um, Learning, which is behavior that result from repeated experience of reasoning. So if you're practicing or you're going through this experience, you learn something, and this is what's happened. And sometimes you put one and one together. We talked about the positive or negative correlation, and that it's reasoning. A will result in a B. The higher A, the higher B. The higher A, the lower is the B. That's what you call a reasoning. So, but it's continual process also. So the learning, it comes from behavioral, also from the cognitive that you use. And if you have a brand loyalty to something, so you see that brand, how it's behaving, so you're looking for other brands to do the similar issues. So in the behavioral learning, which is here we said is learning is behavioral, and behavioral learning, what's happened to you? There is a drive. So developing an automatic response to a type of situation built up through a repeated exposure. There is a drive. And your drive, suddenly you got hungry. So when you get, that's what you call drive. It, and then your response is go out and looking for a food. While you're looking for a food, you saw a sign of McDonald's. That's the reinforcement. Okay. And when you're looking for a food, that's called response. And then when you see a sign of McDonald's, that's a reinforcement. And then you cue, which is you purchase the food to eat. So in the cognitive learning, it's involved making connection between two or more ideas or simply observing the outcome of others' behavior and adjusting your own accordingly. So you probably, when you were a kid, you saw people eating because they were hungry, so you do that. And some people you saw enjoying the food, so when they're eating, you do that. It is observing people, or you find involved two or more ideas together. As we said in building the hypothesis, increasing in A causing increasing in B, or increasing in A have a negative correlation decreasing in B. So you say, if I eat, I'm not hungry anymore. If I buy this shirt, I'm not going to feel cold anymore. This is where you have two ideas connected. And then what you have is a brand loyalties. So you have a favorable attitude toward and consistent purchase of a single brand over time. There's always, whenever you're hungry, you go and buy McDonald's, for example. That's what you call a brand loyalty. Whenever you feel like buying a t-shirt, you go to Lacoste. Whenever you feel like buying a sweatshirt, you go Lacoste. You go your jacket, you go. This is a brand loyalty in a way. So it comes from what you call the attitude formation, and it comes from the attitude changes. We have beliefs, what we believe, and then the values. You start looking at the values, testing the values, and what's your attitude, and the three together will help you to make a decision of purchase or consumptions, or asking for that service to pay for it. And this is how you set up the values also. There is, when we look at others, there is something called the psychographic, which is, I'm not going to go details on it, but is the analysis of consumer lifestyle that offers insight into this behavior. So what his lifestyle, you have to see whether he is a single and bar hopper, for example, or he is a newcomer or a young in connections, or he is kind of a heritage hub, different kind. And that involved affects the behavior. Here, what they did, they have categorized them for marketing according to the North American description and categorization. So they put the UI, which is the urban elite, then you have the type of suburban elite, and then you have the ex-urban elite, and you have the urban upskill drivers, and there is a brief description. You need to go through that, each one of them, to understand the difference between them, because there, when you start marketing, setting up the price, the promotion, the place, product, these are important and will help you to differentiate. The other categories is what you call S2, which is suburban youngers, and then you have ex-urban middle age, and U3, which is the urban youngs. These are the categories of people that you need to deal with them. Accordingly, you set up the 4 Ps to meet that need. So this, how the sociocultural influence on consumer behavior. As we said, when you a person, there is an outside influence and there is an inside influence. The outsiders could be culture and the subculture of it. So you could be from the Indian culture, and there is, the Hindus culture, the Sikh subcultures, or the language that you have. And then you have the family influence, how your immediate family influencing in the decision making, in this purchasing of the decision, the reference group that you might be utilizing, and the personnel that you have. Let me explain to you, when it comes to the family, the unit is a family. And when you are having in front of you a family is walking, and then, for example, in Middle East, it comes to realize how they are walking really. So if you saw, for example, a lady, a man, some children, and an old lady. And the funny thing, you need to recognize who is the decision maker when you are selling something. So you market your product to that person. And if in the case, if you notice that the old lady walk way behind, or the old lady is carrying the bags of shopping, right away, there is one concept you can derive from it, is that old lady, usually culturally, is the mother of the man. And is basically, because the man carry bags, the mother always don't like to see her son carry bags, so she carries it for him. So right away, you realize this old lady is the mother of, in general, no? I'm not saying there's an exception. That's the mother of the man, and usually in the family, the mother of the husband is not part of the decision makers. But if you start walking and you saw a lady and a husband and a man and an old lady with some children, and you saw the husband is carrying the bags, for example, then you know right away the old lady is usually in Middle East is the mother of the wife, because the wife would tell her husband, well, carry the things for my mother, and she won't let her mother carry stuff. So here, then if you talk to an expert of salespeople, when these people walks in the store, he looks at these, and then he knows the decision maker is the lady for buying clothing or whatever, and the advisor is the mother of the woman, and the payer is the husband. So the decision comes in, it's initial decision in the hand of the lady, the wife, and the mother as an advisor. And so these are, when you do is delivering a sales, you need to recognize the behavior of your consumer or customer who is buying to you in order to see how the process happens. Now, when you're selling toys, you probably wants to market your product to the children, but also you take into consideration the pay if the husband is paying or the mother. When you're selling perfume, you need to take the lady itself, the wife or the daughter, whether these are making the decision. But bottom line, also the father or the mother is making the payment. So these are, it gets more complicated if it comes in as a group. Now, when we talk about personal influence, influenced by the views, opinions, and behavior of others. Opinion leaders, word of mouth. Usually word of mouth have very strong advice because usually you listen it from somebody or it is telling somebody who is not, has no stake in it. So word of mouth is very strong. And opinion leaders, the football players, the sports, the TV, movie stars. So you see them, they promote certain product because they are opinion leaders in a way. Now, there is what you call a reference group, a group of people who influence a person's attitude, values, and behaviors. And there are three types of group or society that you look as an individual. There is a group that you are part of them, actually. So you are a member, you behave within the restriction of that membership to be able to stay in the membership. And when you're going out with your same sector religion, you behave differently than you go in a different with different society background religion, you behave differently. So these are it's called the membership group. And then there is the aspiration, is that the group that you wish to be part of them. Maybe the musicians, you want to be part of them. So you buy so many guitars, you dress like them. And there is the disassociation group, that the ones who you don't want to be part of these people. And these are three different groups that influence you. The one who you don't want to disassociate, so you do anything not similar to this group who you don't want to be part of them. So these are the three types that you have as a group, reference group, what do you call? When it comes to the family influences on a consumer behavior result from consumer socializing. How the mother and father is socializing, the children socializing with parents, whether the parents is giving more decision in hand of children, or they are controlling what is supposed to buy. And then you look at the family cycle. The family cycle is this person who is making this, evaluation. Is he the father, the mother, they are the grandparents or the grandchildren. So these are the family cycle which we are located. And decision making within the family. And I brought you the example, who makes the decision in the family. And usually you need to recognize who is, it could be the father or the mother or the mother-in-law could be, or, making that decision, or the grandparents. And, some of the countries. Then you have what you call the culture and subculture, which is the set of the values, attitude, and ideas that are learned, shared among the members of the group. And these are the values, you do them because you learn them from, you know, your culture. And sometimes within one culture, like the Persian culture, for example, there is subcultures there. Within the Indian culture, there is subcultures there belong to different sectors of people or different religion, which is a subculture. And in Canada also, we have what you call multiculturalism, which is made of different cultures. So the difference between, for example, the States and Canada, Canada promote multiculturalism, and if you have your culture, you can active be active in your culture. In a state that's a melting pot, which is every culture that comes in, it melts in one pot and becomes one culture for everybody who's came there. In Canada, no, they promote that you stay strong within your subculture because they say like the difference between us makes us stronger. Now we see that, for example, Canada has become increasingly multi-ethics and multicultural within over 200 cultures. In Toronto area, the most diversity in the world, by the way. We saw in Japan, they like to see the Japanese words they're written so they can see the translation for it. But for example, you see the example here, it's in KitKat. But the cross-cultural analysis study of similarities and difference among the consumer is another field which is makes it more complicated. So you find the similarities if you're targeting different subcultures or cultures, and if you're focusing on one culture, then you do that culture. And in good example in Germany, that has started doing subculture promotions for the Turkish community, which they are something like 6-7 million within the 80 million of Germany. So 10% of the Turkish people, 10% of Germans are Turkish. So there is a subcultures going on, and there is a companies who target them and utilize them. And they look at the values, the custom, the culture, the symbol, and the language of that culture or subcultures. So this is the end, and I'll see you next class.